We all know that you can use carbon plates for your body dampers, but did you know that you can also use car catcher material for the same purpose? I'm one of the only ones using car catcher material in place of carbon plates for my body dampers. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of such? Well, for the carbon plates, you've got super stability, right? Depending on how you bolt these things down. Now, this is not super stable, but if I locked everything in place with lock nuts and such, tighten these lock nuts at the top, I'd probably get this to be stiffer and not move so freely like this. You have the solidity so that when you drop this, it just lands flat. Now, if you design your body dampers correctly using car catcher material, you'll see, same thing. You can get a really stable car using car catcher material. There are some caveats though. So because this is more flexible, a lot of people don't trust it. They think that, oh, this flexible material, there's way too much give. Sometimes you might have like, not just up and down, but you might have like a torsion flex, and the torsion flex is not desirable, which is kind of true and also not true. And here's what I mean by that. When you drop your car, not when you drop your car, but when your car lands, it's going to land like so, and things are going to bounce up. So these are what the mass damper effects are all about. The mass dampers, these things go up and they go back down, and it helps cause the car to land flat. Now, if your car is landing at a slight angle like so, you want these two sides not to behave in exactly the same way. You want them to basically cause your car to land like so and then drop flat. And basically with this flexible material, this car catcher material, I strongly believe that this added torsion flexibility is actually an advantage in situations like that. So if I tilt this slightly, it's going to still land flat. Pretty cool. Same thing with this. I mean, this is going to do it too, but because of the stiffness, I feel that there's going to be a little bit more rattle left and right. You might not think so, fine. But I feel that the flexible aspect of this car catcher material is really awesome for those side landings. And there's going to be a ton more side landings like this than there will be flat landings. So how do you use this material here? How do you use this, right? So when you take your car catcher right out of the package, it's going to be a pretty flat item to begin with. And you unfold the pieces, the wings and the sides, and you basically strategically figure out how to map your body damper right onto the actual plastic that's on the car catcher. And so depending on what colors you like, that's an important thing too, because like I used this neon green, for example, for Firefly. As you see here, Firefly's got this body damper that's made of the car catcher material, as you see here. And yeah, it's pretty stiff. I mean, I purposely made it stiff so that it would just go ploop and just land flat. Ploop, land flat. This one, this is a little different. As you see, it goes bump, 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 bump. So the first bump is a little higher, second bump a little bit lower than that, third bump a little lower than that, and then finally it rests. So this is a different style of body damper than this, where it just goes bump, bump, bump. Which is better? Depends on what you want to do with it, right? You want that solid, stable landing. You want to get it as stiff as possible. But if you're dealing with a lot of multiple bumps, this is probably going to be better. So I also have a tail damper, as you see here. And most of you have seen tail dampers before, made with all kinds of materials, but usually they are in fact made with car catcher material. So I like to fashion them like so, where I have two posts on each side here and the weight right on the end. And this for all intents and purposes is basically the Claire Din style design, where it's a triangle and it's got the weight at the very end. Yeah, pretty cool. So this one has a little bit more give. So this one has the drop and then it bounces up a little bit, dip, and the second time it bounces up a little bit less, third time bounces a little less, and then finally it goes flat. So you want to design your tail dampers kind of like that. Let me remove this and you'll see what this exactly looks like. So this is for an FMA chassis now that I'm showing you. So right here, this is your body damper, and it's shaped just like this. I strategically shaped it like this so that it can fit the body itself, the cowl, right on here. And I'm bolting the cowl down with screws, as you see here, and lock nuts on the top. So I have two of them on each side like so. All you need is two, folks. You need more than one, that's for sure. If you just had one in the center, for example, this thing would start rotating around. So you need at least two to get this bolted down and not moving. Now, I have the weights right here as well. And as you see, they're just like so. And you have to strategically position the weights so that they will fall behind the front wheels. So let me just put this back on and I'll show you what I mean. So here you see the weights are behind the wheel, and there's got to be enough clearance such that there's no interference with the weight touching the body. You don't want the weight to touch the body for various reasons. So you want to make sure that there's a little bit of space between the body and the damper. Yes. So some people choose to use the ball stabilizers in the bottom. Others might choose to use lock nuts. Others still might choose to use rubber piping. All three are fine. I think the ball stabilizers are probably the best because if it does touch the ground for whatever reason, the ball stabilizer produces the least amount of friction against the track surface. So pretty cool. Now, you want to adjust these attachment points so that this is flush. These, see the resting points? Here are the resting points, these two lock nuts that I have right here. And it's slightly curved. It's slightly curved for two reasons. Because the natural curvature of the car catcher material itself, as you see the top part there, and you want to make sure that these are securely tightened. You don't want to push them down all the way and cause like a big deep curve. You don't want that because that gives you a different characteristic. Maybe you do want that. It depends on how you want to adjust things. But I like to basically just push this down as much as I need so that there's that slight curve, the natural curve of the top portion that I'm using here of the car catcher material. So yes, and the way you attach your screws, the hanging screws for the dampers, there could be all sorts of crazy things going on because this is like this material is not static like carbon plates are. So static and stiff like carbon plates are. This is a flexible material, so you have to adjust your screws accordingly so that they don't bow too much inward, right? So that they don't point inwards, or they don't bow too much outwards or forward or back. You want to make sure that they drop like so. The screws should be perpendicular to the floor, the ground, from the front and the sides. So yeah, pretty cool. Now, perhaps one thing I'd like to show you, a modification, so to speak, to my usual body damper design is for the animal racers. Now the animal racers some of them have their own unique cowls. Like you see here, this is like the most often used cowl for the version 1s of all of the animal racers. So whether it be the pig racer or this wolf racer or all the version 1s of the animal racers, you'll see you get a cowl that looks very similar to this. And what I did here was, this is an open class car in which I have a strip, just a strip of car catcher material on the underside of this, and it is bolted onto the cowl with this single screw here. However, it's attached right here in the front with two lock nuts, two screws and lock nuts. And I basically slipped underneath the car catcher material. You can see it right at the front here. The car catcher material is in between the top plate and the chassis itself, and it's bolted down, as you see there. So yes, pretty darn cool. This is like another version of the body damper using car catcher material. So it's an alternative if you don't want to use carbon plates for whatever reason, maybe because you feel like creating your own body damper system using carbon plates is a little too difficult given what your tools are, for example. If you don't have machinist tools like a Proxxon or some other thing like that, then creating these things will be very difficult. So yeah, it's just much easier, I think, to just create your own unique designs using car catcher material. And there are so many things that you have to look at to make sure that everything's totally created precisely and correctly on your car. Because you don't want to design a car that, like it looks nice, but it's not very functional. So the cool thing about this car, the FMA chassis, is a nice beginner's voyage, so to speak, into the world of open class. Because right now, everything about this car is like weighted towards the front. And that is a wonderful thing for a lot of technically diverse tracks that have like jumps and things like that. Having that front-weighted engine really helps balance the car on tracks like that. So yeah, most of your work is done for you with an FMA chassis. Pretty cool. Now, if you want to go into, say, the suspension world, then the MS chassis is for you. And if you've never created an MS suspension chassis before, my advice to you is to just go out and buy one. Buy one from a reputable source like Madtang, and yeah, you'll have the suspension chassis, this is not a Mad 10 chassis, but this is a suspension chassis where it's got the springs built into each of the front and the rear units. So you see here, when this lands, it lands flat. Well, it doesn't have the appropriate weight on there. There it is. It lands flat. So yeah, a lot of people believe that MS suspension chassis, they have an automatic advantage over other cars. I tend to think differently because I've designed open class cars that were not MS suspension chassis, and they ran fairly well against the MS suspension chassis, in some cases beating them. So just because you have an MS suspension chassis does not mean you're going to automatically win a race against a non-MS suspension chassis. There are so many other factors involved. So yeah, I remember racing my first open class car. It was a VZ chassis. I just wanted to prove that VZ chassis were just as good as MS suspension chassis, and I did just that. My cars were really fast, and they stayed on the track for the most part. And if they didn't, then it was like cataclysmic damage. But when they stayed on the track, it was golden. And the wonderful thing is, I then went old school and I said, you know what? Let's create a VS chassis open class car and create one that can beat MS suspension chassis. And I did that. And so this was the car, Firefly. This is the car that beat all those other cars. And it was like strong, stable, solid. It was perfect. The engine was tuned just right, and it was so fast. So yeah, other people have seen this car, and yeah, depending on the track itself, this car, let's put it this way, it raised the hairs of people's backs because it was like so fast. It's one of those things where on the proper track, on the right track, this can blow away a lot of cars because it's that fast. It's only got a 4-to-1 gear ratio, but running a power dash motor, it can knock the socks off of a lot of cars really fast. And some tracks, you have to dumb it down to like power dash, but it's still pretty fast with a power dash motor. Yeah, pretty cool. Now, my FMA car. Yeah, this is a fast open class car. It's just that, unfortunately, it's suffered like a lot of damage. So the bottom plate broke off and I had to glue it back on. And now it's not actually at the proper angle, like it's actually angling upwards slightly, which actually is a good thing in some cases, but I'd rather it be flat and level with the rest of the chassis itself like it was before. But because I used glue to glue this in place, now it's permanently at that slight upward angle. And it's fine for certain tracks. It's not that fine for other tracks. I'm okay with it. That's why I'm building a new version of this FMA open class car. And this time, some of the things I'm going to show you on here, on my FMA open class, pretty darn cool. It's going to be on my next video, and you'll see me describe those things on the next video. It's pretty cool. Don't miss the next video. I know I have a lot of FMA style videos, but FMA chassis has rapidly become one of my favorite chassis. Before it was VS, now it's FMA. I just want to show that, you know, that you could build an FMA open class car relatively easily and do really well in races with it. And the cool thing is, you don't have to copy anybody else's designs and make it your own. And I'll show you how in the next video. Yeah. So everybody, if you like this video, please slam the like button, subscribe to my channel. You'll see more videos just like this one. Until next time, everybody, see you. Bye.